Europe was invaded, overwritten, and reshaped again and again. Languages vanished, bloodlines diluted, gods replaced gods. But on the western edge of the continent, something strange happened. Ireland stayed recognizably Irish. Same core ancestry, same genetic signatures, same people, long after empires rose and fell around them. So the question isn't why Ireland was invaded. It's why those invasions failed to change the Irish, when they succeeded everywhere else. If you're someone who suspects that history doesn't just live in dates, but in instincts, behaviors, and inherited patterns, this is for you. Because this isn't about pride, it's not about purity, and it's not about being special, it's about how survival actually works. When power, armies, and empires all come and go. Let's be clear, no population is genetically pure. Every group mixes, every lineage changes. What we're talking about is degree of replacement. Compared to most of Europe, Irish DNA shows higher continuity, less large-scale population turnover, fewer total genetic resets. This isn't mythology, it's population genetics. By the end of this, you'll understand why Europe was genetically overwritten, why Ireland wasn't, at least not in the same way, and why endurance often comes from being structurally inconvenient. As you listen, notice this. Every time an empire fails, it fails for a reason. History rarely celebrates. Number 1. The invasion pattern that changed Europe. First, understand the pattern, not the dates, not the maps, the pattern. Picture a quiet village, low roofs, smoke rising straight up because there's no wind. Fields worked by the same hands for generations. Nothing feels weak here. People wake up, they work, they eat, they sleep. Life goes on. Then something shifts. Not all at once. Not with noise. It starts with strangers on the road, not soldiers. Carts, children walking beside them, animals tied with rope. People notice. They don't say much. They tell themselves it's temporary. Most European populations didn't disappear because they were weak. No one felt weak while it was happening. They were replaced. Steppe migrations. Imagine the edge of the horizon changing. New silhouettes, different clothes, different animals, different way of sitting on a horse. At first there's distance, curiosity, watching from far away. Then trade, then sharing space. A man notices his neighbor now speaks differently, not loudly, just enough to sound off. A woman hears a new lullaby through the wall at night. The tune feels unfamiliar. Not wrong, just not hers. No one announces what's happening. Roman expansion. Stone roads cutting through places that never asked for them. Walls rising where trees once stood. Not just soldiers. Clerks counting. Men writing names down. Men deciding who owns what now. A farmer is told his land is still his. But the rules are different. The taxes arrive on time. Every time. He nods. What else can he do? His son learns a new language because it makes life easier. Because people look at him differently when he uses it. No one calls this loss. Germanic movements. Whole groups moving together. Not chasing, arriving. They don't burn everything. They settle. They build next to what's already there. A marriage here. A shared field there. Old customs become jokes, then memories, then stories told wrong. An old man realizes no one asks him how things used to be anymore. They don't mean harm, they just don't need it. Slavic expansion, slow, wide, quiet, villages multiplying, names changing shape. A place keeps its name, but the sound is different now, like it's being spoken through someone else's mouth. A woman hears her child say a word she never taught them. She pauses, corrects them, then lets it go. These weren't just armies marching through. Armies leave. This stayed. They were settlers. People who planned to be there tomorrow. Families. Children running ahead of their parents. Laughing, making noise. It's hard to feel threatened by laughter. Farmers, hands in the soil. Seeds going into the ground. Planting means staying. Administrators, quiet men, clean clothes, scrolls, seals. They don't shout, they don't fight. They decide. Conquest wasn't complete until bloodlines followed power. Not when the flag went up, not when the battle ended, when babies were born, when last names changed, when accents softened, when faces slowly shifted. No one wakes up one morning and feels erased. It happens between generations. A grandmother tells a story. Her grandchild listens politely but doesn't repeat it. It doesn't feel important anymore. And most of Europe was perfectly suited for this. Wide land, good soil, open paths, places easy to move into, easy to stay. No walls high enough to stop families. No borders strong enough to block children. Replacement doesn't look like violence when you're living inside it. It looks like adjustment. It looks like getting used to things. It looks like silence after questions that stop being asked. And one day, no one remembers there was ever anything else. Number 2, Ireland's geographic inconvenience. Ireland broke the pattern immediately, not with force, not with walls, just by being where it was. Look at a map in your head, then stop looking at the center. Look to the edge. Water, cold, restless, never still. To reach it, invaders needed naval capacity, not bravery, not strength. Boats that didn't fall apart halfway there, men who could read waves, wood that could survive salt. Picture a shoreline at dawn, fog sitting low, a small fleet rocking unevenly. Some men stare forward, some stare down. No one talks much. Because land is certain, water isn't. Sustained supply lines, not one crossing. Again, and again, and again. Food that doesn't rot. Weapons that don't rust. Men who don't panic on the third trip when the wind turns. Now imagine the pause between crossings. Waiting weeks. Watching the sea. Listening for storms. Motivation strong. Enough to cross open water repeatedly. That part matters. Because water gives you time to think. Time to ask questions no one asks on land. Is this worth it? What's actually there? Why not stop? Ancient invasions favored land continuity. Roads. You march. You rest. You march again. Plains. You can see ahead. You can see danger coming. Rivers. They guide you, feed you, carry you forward. Ireland offered none of that. No slow advance, no gradual pressure. Just a hard line between here and there. It was an island with rough seas, not cinematic waves, ugly ones. Choppy, unpredictable. The kind that soak you before you even leave shore. Poor harbors, no wide, welcoming bays, no easy landing, just rock, wind. Shorelines that don't forgive mistakes. A captain looks at the coast and hesitates. Just for a second. That second matters. And no obvious imperial reward. No gold cities glittering from afar. No massive grain stores waiting to be taken. Just land that looks stubborn. Green but unpromising. People who don't look impressed by visitors. You don't invade places like that unless you really want to. And most didn't. Genetic replacement requires volume. Not heroes, not legends. Volume. Lots of people. Over a long time. Enough births to drown out what was already there. Ireland filtered volume out. Every crossing was a test. Every trip lost some who didn't make it. Some who turned back. Some who never tried again. The sea did the filtering quietly. No battle cries, no monuments. Just fewer arrivals. And fewer arrivals means fewer children. And fewer children means fewer names that stick. So life continues. Villages stay small, faces stay familiar. Stories sound the same when they're told again. Songs don't change rhythm. Not because anyone planned it, because the water decided first, and water doesn't explain itself. Number 3. Late settlement, early stability. Ireland was settled later than much of Europe after the Ice Age, late enough that the land still felt new, quiet, unclaimed in the way only untouched places are. Picture the first families arriving, not crowds, small groups. They step onto wet ground, look around, say very little. But once settled, something critical happened. They stayed, not drifting, not spreading endlessly. They stayed close. The population stabilized. That doesn't mean comfort, it means familiarity. The same faces, the same names, the same paths walked over and over until the ground remembers them. Children grow up knowing exactly who belongs where, who married into which family, who shares blood, who shares grudges. By the time large replacement waves swept Europe, Ireland already had dense kinship bonds not written down. Felt. A man doesn't ask who you are. He already knows who you're related to. If you stand in the wrong place, people notice. Not with anger, with quiet attention, clear territorial divisions. Not borders with signs. Boundaries carried in memory. This hill is ours. That river bend isn't. You don't need to be told. You feel it when you cross. Conversation shortens. Eyes linger a second longer than usual. Limited arable land. That matters more than people like to admit. Fields are small, carefully used, every workable patch already claimed, already argued over in the past, already settled. There's no extra space waiting for someone new. No empty farms, no abandoned valleys. There was no demographic vacuum, no silence waiting to be filled, no gaps. So when outsiders arrived, they didn't replace. They arrived into resistance. Not always loud, not always violent. Sometimes it's a refusal to marry, a deal that never quite goes through, a welcome that stays polite but shallow. A man nods, smiles, keeps his distance. Children grow up playing together, but when they're older, lines reappear. Who inherits what? Who stays? Who leaves? Resistance doesn't always push back. Sometimes it just doesn't move. And over time, that stillness does the work. Not dramatic, not heroic, just steady. Like land that's already full. Like a place that has decided there's no room left without ever saying it out loud. Number 4. Why Rome matters most. Rome is the key comparison. Not the Rome of statues, not the Rome of speeches. The Rome that stayed. Rome didn't just conquer Europe. Conquest ends. Rome didn't. Rome restructured it genetically, quietly, patiently. After the battles, life began. Veterans settled, men who were tired of marching, tired of tents, tired of orders shouted at dawn. They were given land, not to pass through, to die on. They married local women, built houses, planted trees they would never see fully grown. Merchants intermarried. They followed roads, found markets, learned local habits. They didn't argue about customs, they blended. A local accent slips into their speech. A Roman name enters a local family. No announcement, no ceremony. Administrators stayed, not the kind you notice at first. Men who kept records, collected taxes, decided disputes. They didn't leave after a season. They raised children where they worked. Roman DNA spread wherever Roman cities took root. Because cities are anchors. Stone makes people believe tomorrow is guaranteed. People build families when they feel settled. Ireland had no Roman cities. No grid of streets, no baths, no forums, no place where Roman life could sink in and stay. Rome evaluated Ireland and decided, too costly. Too many ships lost for too little ground gained. Too remote. Too far from the center. Too hard to watch. Too hard to supply. Too little return. No great wealth waiting, no easy grain, no obvious prestige. Britain was reshaped. Roman towns still sit under modern ones. Roads still guide feet. Gaul transformed. Names changed. Faces blended. Old identities softened. Iberia rewritten. Layer by layer. Century by century. Ireland stayed outside the machine. Not by rebellion, not by glory, by absence, by never being folded in. The Roman world kept turning, grinding, absorbing. And Ireland stood just beyond it. Close enough to see the lights. Far enough to stay untouched. No legionary children growing up with Irish mothers. No Roman surnames settling deep into the land. Just a place Rome looked at, measured, and quietly walked away from. Sometimes history changes most when someone decides not to come at all. Number 5. Rurality as genetic defense. Cities are where genetics dissolve. Not suddenly, not violently, slowly. Cities pull people in. A man arrives alone. No family name anyone recognizes. No history anyone cares about. That's the point. They attract migrants. People running from something, or towards something they can't name. In a city, no one asks who your grandfather was. They ask what you can do. Power centralizes. Decisions move upward, away from kitchens, away from fields. One building replaces 100 conversations, and mixing becomes normal. Different faces, different accents, different habits. At first it feels awkward, then familiar, then invisible. A child grows up surrounded by difference. It stops feeling like difference at all. Ireland stayed rural, not empty, not backward. Just spread out. Power lived in families. You knew where authority came from. You saw it at the table. Lineages, names carried weight. Not because they were famous, because they were known. Clans, not ideas. People. You could point to them, count them, trace them. Marriage stayed local, not romantic. Practical. You married someone whose parents you knew, whose land you understood, whose past wasn't a mystery. Identity stayed inherited. You didn't invent yourself, you received yourself. Culture stayed personal, not written, lived, passed down in tone, in gestures, in what was left unsaid. You can't overwrite what doesn't centralize. There's no single place to change it, no hub to capture, no city to take and call it done. Everything important is already distributed, already embedded, already held by people who know each other too well. So influence arrives and spreads thin. It doesn't take root, because there's nowhere for it to sit still. And what never sits still never fully replaces what was already there. Number 6. Clan structure over state power. Here's the paradox. What looked like weakness was the thing that held. Ireland's lack of a strong centralized state made it harder to replace. There was no head to cut off, no throne that ended everything once it fell, no single ruler to depose. Take one man and nothing changes. Another steps in. Life continues. No capital to seize, no moment where the banners drop and everyone understands the rules have changed. No city that once taken makes the rest fall quiet. No administrative reset button. Nothing you could press to wipe the slate clean. Every place ran itself. Every family held its own weight. Even after invasion, local power remained local. A foreign lord arrives, builds a fort, claims authority. But beyond the walls, life sounds the same. Fields still worked by the same hands. Disputes still settled by familiar voices. Invaders ruled over clans, not through them. That difference matters. They could demand tribute. They could enforce obedience. But they couldn't rewrite relationships. They couldn't step inside bloodlines. So the population endured beneath the surface. Not in rebellion, in routine. Children still learned who they were from grandparents, not officials. Names stayed where they were. Land passed the old way. Power hovered above, never fully sinking in. Like frost that touches the ground at night and melts by morning. What remains isn't what shouted the loudest. It's what kept going quietly when no one was watching. And by the time anyone noticed, it was already too deep to remove. Number 7. Vikings, Normans, and limited absorption. Yes, Ireland was invaded. That part isn't denied. It's not romanticized away. Vikings arrived. You can picture them clearly. Ships cutting through gray water. Wood creaking. Sails stiff with wind. They didn't wander inland at first. They hugged the coast. They built where boats could land, where escape was always possible. Ports formed. Busy places, loud places, trade, noise, movement. But step a few miles away, and the sound fades. Fields still quiet, paths still narrow, faces still familiar. Normans followed, sharper edges, castles rising fast, stone where there was none before. They took titles, drew lines, collected rents. They married in. Sometimes. But they stayed clustered. Power near walls, authority near gates. English control expanded. Slowly, administratively. Maps changed before lives did. Laws written in one language. Spoken lives lived in another. But notice the pattern. They formed elites. Small at the top, visible, countable, names you can list. They built ports, places of entry, places of exit, not places of roots. They ruled above, from keeps, from towns, from documents. But they didn't replace the countryside. That's where the difference sits. Go inland, past the roads that thin out. You still hear the old names, still see the same family lines working the same land. Genetically they appear, but as thin layers, not total rewrites. A surname here, a trace there. Enough to be noticed, not enough to take over. Ireland absorbed without dissolving, like water poured onto stone. It touches, it flows. But the stone stays stone. New rulers come and go. Accents pass through. Blood mixes at the edges, but the center holds its shape. Not because it fought every time, not because it won, because it never fully opened itself up to be replaced in the first place. So invasion leaves marks, scars, footnotes, but underneath the old pattern keeps breathing. Quietly, waiting out whoever thinks they've arrived to change everything. Now pause and consider this. Where in your life are you trying to survive by becoming bigger? When becoming less accessible might protect you more? History glorifies dominance, but genetics honors endurance. The people who last aren't always the strongest. They're the ones who avoid overexposure. Stay rooted and refuse unnecessary centralization. Ireland didn't dominate Europe. It simply wasn't overwritten. If this reframed how you think about survival, identity, or power, subscribe to Moonlight Whisper. Not to be told what to think, but to learn how endurance really works. Empires expand, armies march, names fade, but survival doesn't announce itself. It lives quietly. In families, in habits, in bloodlines that remain when everything else changes. And sometimes the strongest strategy is staying difficult to replace.